Hey, hey, Mance, how you doing?
All right, Garrett, what's going on?
It's good to be back.
It is.
It is. Today we have some very special guests. Actually, I've been really excited. We've been trying to put this together for a while, and I'm super happy that it all came together. We got the Polaris Dawn Crew with us, and we'll introduce them in just a minute. Here they are. Say hi, everybody.
Hey there.
We
Hello,
got
crew.
We got Commander Jared Isaacman. We got Mission Specialist, if I got this right, Sarah Gillis, Anna Menon, and then we got Kid Poteet as the pilot there on the left of your screen. And I'm just going to give you a quick idea of what they're going to do, and then I'm going to let them tell you all about it. So they're going to go up in space. I think you got that right. That's kind of a given. They're going to go really high. Okay, they're going to 1,400 kilometers, which is going to be the highest away from the Earth at apogee that any human has traveled since Apollo. So that's pretty huge. Should get some really good pictures. I'm looking forward to that. And then they're going to come back down to about 700 kilometers apogee, and then they're going to do the first private EVA. They're going to go out the door. Actually, all four of them will be at vacuum. They're going to depressurize the whole vehicle. They're going to open a hatch, and then two of them are going to climb outside and take a look at the Earth, and then and accomplish that. They're also doing over 40 science experiments, including things looking at the radiation environment, looking at sands, the visual acuity issue we have, and then they're going to come on back. And I think those are the main mission highlights. They're also going to do some stuff to help with St. Jude, who they've been supporting since Inspiration 4, and has I understand a special message that they're going to send. So a lot of good stuff. Here's a crew of Polaris Dawn. Yay!
Yay. They're still there. We didn't scare them off yet, Garrett. I was wondering if they were going to head for the hill.
I know they're still here. So, what did I get wrong, Jared? Why don't you hop on and say did I cover all the big things? Or did I miss anything?
No, I think Garrett, I think you really nailed it. We have a lot of exciting objectives for the mission. It's why it's taken 2 years to get ready for the launch, but the big day is coming up, and yeah, we're going to go really high, and think that's important because kind of getting beyond where we've been for some period of time and taking a step towards getting back to the moon and Mars. There's a lot to learn there. We've got a whole new spacesuit. We're actually right across the street from your old offices here. We're in a hotel right next to JSC. We're in the vacuum chamber this week, which is pretty cool. We're testing out the suits in what is a National Historic Landmark, which is the chambers over here. So that's pretty awesome. And the idea being, if we're going to get back to the moon and Mars, we're going to probably need a lot of suits, especially if you think there's armadas of starships heading in that direction at some point. We're going to test out communications over Starlink. And as you mentioned, we have a really important message to send, over laser links that is in support of St. Jude and other causes we believe pretty strongly in. And then, as you mentioned, we have 40 science and research experiments, the vast majority of which will be experiments we'll specifically be doing on Kid, which are pretty, they're going to be pretty wild. So he's the oldest, and it makes sense.
The most expendable. Already sacrificed like a handful of organs for this damage.
That's very kind of you.
That's not bad. So Jared, this is your second. We did a lot worse, didn't we, Garrett?
Oh yeah, I still miss that duodenum. Every once in a while, I really wish I had that thing back, but.
So Jared, this is your second mission, of course, right? But I know you're excited. So my question for you is, are you more excited about this one or the first one? And then for the other folks, if they could tell us what they're feeling, what it's like, what's going through your head right now, and your heart getting ready for this.
I'm thrilled to be here. What an awesome crew. We had an unbelievable time on Inspiration 4, and we spent 2 years getting ready for this one. I'm really excited to kind of see their reactions as we get to orbit. I know it's really hard to describe that, that sensation at SECO, and you feel really behind the rocket and try and figure out where you are in that particular moment. And now I'm kind of familiar with it, so instead I can put my attention towards seeing the facial expressions for the rest of my crew on that big moment. So.
Cool. What about the rest of you? What are you guys thinking about? What's it like?
I'm super excited. We've obviously been in training for a long time, and it's closer than it's ever been right now. I think I'm just most excited to see what we do well in training, what we don't do well in training, what we can learn being up there and bring back to the SpaceX team for future missions. But I think most excited to see everybody in that microgravity environment floating around and get that perspective of Earth.
Yeah, I would just echo that. I feel thrilled to get to be this close to our launch date. It's been a fantastic journey getting to this point. You know, every moment of training is fun, filled with a ton of learning, but filled with also just great relationship building with the SpaceX team amongst our crew. And it's been just an incredible journey to this point. So really looking forward to getting on that rocket and getting to put in action all of these mission objectives that all of these people have worked so hard to get to this point to accomplish.
I would say, you know, a lot of our training obviously is dedicated to simulating what we're going to experience in space, try to replicate it as accurate as possible. And over the last couple of years, I've noticed certain moments, aha experiences of, oh shit, we're really going to do this. The first time we closed the hatch in the sim as a crew. Oh God, that brings back bad memories. I'm trying to see get emotional. So we're all
You can give us details if you'd like.
What's that?
It doesn't have to be funny. It could be scary.
It could be tragic. It could be,
Yeah.
it could be two funny astronauts and like one tragic astronaut. That's okay.
But I definitely had one of those yesterday in the chamber. You know, we were in our suits, our flight suits, in vacuum, shutting the hatch or the chamber door. So all those, you know, will hopefully prepare us for what we're going to experience. But obviously, nothing can truly replicate what we're going to experience. But I'm looking forward to every single phase. You know, from launch to that transition at Seco to splashdown. So it's going to be a fun ride.
And I'm curious how are James and Grace dealing with this? You know, as this is going to be, they're going to have to go through this multiple times because I don't know if our viewers know this, but your husband's also an astronaut, and so this is the first time that they're going to have to deal with having a parent blast off on a rocket, but it won't be the last. And so how are they coping with that? Do they realize this is something they're going to have to get used to, or how's it going?
You know, I think that they have been raised in a space culture. I think even when Anil and I were, you know, engineers and flight surgeon working at SpaceX side by side, the kids used to think our family lived in a rocket because space is just such a part of our family's culture and life and something we love and share with our kids regularly. So, you know, I think it probably won't fully set in till they actually watch the launch, and then it'll probably help them realize like what it'll feel like the next time when their dad goes up. But you know, I think it's really such a joy to share this experience with them. We try to expose them to as many pieces of it as we can so that they can learn about the field and really have their eyes open to the various paths in the world around us. So it's fun.
Are you gonna have contact with them? What's it like for you guys? Like, you know, on the shuttle and station, we were able to more on the station. The shuttle, we didn't have very much, but the station, of course, you know, you could receive calls. You couldn't receive calls, but you could have. I know it was on the station, but Garrett was when you're able to call your friend. Garrett never called me. Actually, he did, but he. No, but I mean, are you able? What's your contact with your family like once you're in space? Is there any at all?
Yep, we do have contact with our family. We will have several like evening phone calls with our families, checkpoints kind of along the mission to just connect with them, get to talk to our families doing the hard work here back on Earth. And then I'll also talk with my kids as I read a book that I co-authored, Kisses from Space, to them, as well as some of the patients of St. Jude from space.
And SpaceX is going to broadcast obviously the launch, the EVA, the splashdown. There's a lot planned for sure.
So when you're not doing the webcast, not during one of those three phases, can you use, I know you're going to have a Starlink connection. Are you going to be able to use that bandwidth to do kind of Zoom calls with family and for personal uses, or is that all for science and telemetry, or how's that split up?
So we have obviously a lot going on the mission, and the checkout and activation of Starlink is going to happen a little bit later in the flight once we get through the spacewalk. So we won't necessarily have free reign of the internet from the get-go, but we definitely have some really specific objectives we're hoping to test on the network, hopefully send some great messages down to Earth using that new link. But it is obviously a test mission of this new technology. And the Starlink team at SpaceX has been working to figure out how to send a laser system to Dragon, send space internet to Dragon for the last couple of years. So we definitely have some important tests we're hoping to get through.
What kind of connections? Are you talking like hundreds of megabits per second? Is that what you're expecting to get? Is it going to be like as good as it is on Earth, or what? How's it going to be?
I actually don't think I know the expected network performance yet.
There was a table. It looked pretty good.
Yeah.
Do you have unlimited minutes?
Let's find out.
Do you have to pay if you go? Do you have to pay roaming charges? What happens? You run out of minutes? I don't know. How's that work?
Sure hope not.
Go ahead, Matt. Sorry.
We're not getting anything out of him, Garrett.
I know.
We had a phone on so on shuttle we didn't have the phone, like the internet protocol phone you had on station back then, right, Garrett?
Yeah.
But some of my crewmates, the new space flyers, really wanted a phone on board, and they were able to hook it up. I'm like, I don't think we should do this because, like the crew is saying here, you only have all that much time, and how do you work all that in to set up the phone? So of course we never set up the phone. We never had the time to set up the phone, so we didn't make any of these calls. So that set ourselves up for disappointing our family. So of course we got home, and my wife's like, "Well, I'm glad you're back, but why didn't you call?" So you might be better off setting the bar low on that expectation at home, and if anything comes through, it's gravy.
It's a good idea. I use it a lot. We had a lot more time on the ISS, so I used to call for pizza delivery, and then when I came home, I had all this free pizza because 30 minutes or less. They say, or it's free. Good luck.
How long you guys going to be up there? By the way, we mentioned all these things that are going on. How long is the mission for?
5 days.
5 days. Okay, cool. And
just to brag on the SpaceX engineers, the suit gets a lot of the attention over the last couple of years because that was a pretty monumental effort to get to this point. But just making Starlink work, communicating over laser links was a huge deal. So for anyone who thinks like we're just throwing the on switch on and wailing away on the internet, it's anything but that. I mean, there are very specific windows. Dragon is constantly changing its orientation. Every Draco pulse could break a laser link. But it's such it's fascinating to get all these briefs, but such an important problem to solve. I mean, as you guys know, everything is really concentrated on TDRS and ground stations, which isn't unlimited coverage, and it's like a big availability issue between everybody that creates demand on it, especially with more rockets going up. So it could be a really big game changer, when this proves out, and just alleviate a lot of the congestion on kind of the legacy systems that are out there. And obviously it's a high bandwidth deal. So anyway, it was a big challenge that they pulled off on this one.
Yeah, it could be huge if you're able to improve all that for everybody. That would be a major improvement. Nice contribution.
It was really interesting because the Starlink was designed to get internet globally on Earth, but I don't know if they thought in the beginning that we can also use this in space to kind of take the place of TDRS. Was that something that SpaceX had in mind, or is it something that somebody said, "Hey, you know what? We can actually do this"?
Also a great question. I'm not sure. I think it's super cool that they're able to take something that, started in one place and adapt it to so many potential use cases. And I think that's what's so exciting about Starlink is how it does have the potential to entirely change how we think about communication and the ways we can communicate both around the world and now outside of space or inside space as well.
Yeah.
But I think it's really cool to see the team on Starlink iterate and be able to come up with new ways and new, ideas for how to use this really cool network.
Yeah. And Elon says this all the time, right? I mean, SpaceX set some pretty, extraordinary, almost outrageous goals, like, taking Starship and Armadas to Mars. And then it's like, look, even if we get that wrong, we have like an incredible capability for low Earth orbit in the moon. Kind of a similar thing here. You've got Starlink, which, look, internet high demand, there's disconnected parts of the world. I mean, information is foundational to solving so many problems. Connecting all these disconnected communities. And by the way, it's not going to be a lousy form of communication either when we're sending vehicles off to, the moon or Mars eventually. I mean, probably have to create additional constellations a little bit farther out there. But I mean, they are making, thousands of these things. So it's just like kind of bonus capabilities you get on a lot of these big objectives that SpaceX establishes.
Yeah. Cool. Garrett, I know you probably know this. I was going to ask him about training. We okay to... Did you want to follow up on any more of this? Because this is interesting too,
especially for the EVA training.
Because Kid was talking about being in the chain, and you guys are at JSC. You're at the Johnson Space Center doing this stuff. So I've just there's so many questions I have regarding that. I mean, is NASA working with you on that? Are you going to the same chamber? It's a single person chamber, like the one you said it was they made it a national landmark. I guess that was after Garrett and I were through there. I hope it still works, just because it's a landmark, make sure, no, but that was a pretty cool experience. I just wonder, if you could take us through that, like, because was NASA with you on that, or did you also, did you have a pre-breathe? Did you watch a movie during your pre-breathe? Remember that, Garrett?
Talladega Nights.
Talladega
Nights. Ricky Bobby.
Oh, that's
great.
a
great one. Yeah. So, okay. So what, can you take us through that? What it was like? Because that was pretty cool, man. Going in the vacuum chamber and checking out your spacesuit was a pretty monumental thing, I would say, right, Garrett? For you, sure as well.
It was a monumental thing, but I think the really thing you hit on the really important thing, which is the movies. So we
right, yeah, what movie? Yeah,
we watched
Ballad of Ricky Bobby.
Sorry, kid.
Ballad of Ricky Bobby.
That's the best, man. I want to go
not
fast.
First, you're last.
Yeah,
shake and bake. We watched that movie on our last night in space. My last night in space on STS-132.
Cool.
And I love it. We all talk and wax poetic about how beautiful the Earth is, and how the overview effect hits us all, and how amazing. And then I point out that on our last night in space, when our last chance to look out and see that beautiful majesty of the planet Earth, we covered up all the windows with shades so we could watch Talladega Nights.
We had a couple wave off days on my second flight, so we had 3 days without anything to do because we were supposed to be home. And so I was just looking out the window, but more, my crewmates were a little more conscientious. They were looking for things to do, and there was really nothing to do. So they set up a movie theater, like you're talking about, on the middeck, right, Gary?
Yep.
So there was this one occasion, I'm looking out the window at thunderstorms over Australia or something like that at night. It's just amazing, right? And Drew Feustel is downstairs, and he's in the middeck, and he yells up, "Hey, Mass, come on down." I'm like, "Why?" He says, "We're going to watch Nacho Libre." I go, "Watch it without me. I'll catch it when I get home." No offense to Jack Black, but looking out that window was a lot better. But the movie, we used to watch that because we had a long pre-breathe before we could get into the chamber. We could go to the lower pressure. What was it? I would like to hear if you guys and Garrett, steer me if I'm saying things that everybody knows, but I'm just wondering. I mean, like, what is the pressure in the suit? What is your concern? DCS? What did you practice in that chamber? Because what did you replicate? Anything you could tell? I think that's really cool. I think the audience would think it's pretty cool too.
I just wanted to hit on the historic landmark thing, and then we can give you all the specifics. All
right, great.
This is Chamber B next to Chamber A, where they did the big Armageddon scene. The monster that had the Apollo command module in it. So two of us were able to go in. There is a plaque on it that says declared National Historic Landmark in 1985. So 40 years ago, there was a lot of history with this thing that needed to be preserved. Yeah. So we're confident inspiring, but actually really awesome considering all the history associated with it. But
it worked, thankfully. Yeah.
Cool. So you guys went in the big chamber? You didn't go in like the smaller one? The one we had could only fit one person in there with a spacesuit when you did your suit checkout.
You're in building 32.
Yeah.
So I think the chamber you guys do it in is, so to speak, is
probably 7.
7?
Is that what it was, Garrett? Yeah.
I think so. Yeah.
Okay, so you went into the big chamber, like where they put spaceships in and stuff.
Second biggest, the one next to the giant one. Two of us could still go in.
Okay. All right. So what did you do? What was your did you have a pre-breathe? Is there anything you can tell us about the way, what you were thinking and how the suit performed and all that?
Well, I can tell you maybe a little bit about the process, then you guys will have to speak to the experience, because Anna and I are actually testing on Friday, tomorrow.
Oh.
But the overall.
We're gonna get them all drunk tonight.
They never let us do that at NASA.
Doing some exercise, some drinking, and then going into the chamber. Getting dehydrated.
Well, you guys have a unique pre-breathe process, right? You guys are doing a very gradual denitrization of the blood, right? You're going to do a gradual pressure decrease and O2 replenishment. So did you do, are you doing the same thing in a chamber that you're doing in space, or is it different?
So as you mentioned, in space, we're doing this gradual lowering of pressure and increasing of oxygen to slowly denitrogenate the tissues. But here in JSC, we actually are doing more of a standard 100% oxygen pre-breathe. So the guys got suited up and then spent 4.5 hours on 100% oxygen before going into the chamber, going through the full depress sequence, kind of at vacuum dwell, doing some of the metabolic rate elevating activities, and then ultimately repressing the chamber. So it's different than our flight profile. We did a test, year and a half ago that was actually back out here at JSC in a different chamber. And that's where we validated the pre-breathe profile, where we did kind of the full depress sequence, slowly increasing oxygen over multiple days, 2 days spent in that chamber. Broke the two pieces up, the pre-breathe profile, and now we're out for the final suit at vacuum test.
What's your pressure? What's your suit pressure? Sorry, Garrett. What's your suit pressure when you go to EVA here?
Depends on if you have backup cooling on or the secondary cooling on, but it's between 5 and 5.2.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
What'd you have, Garrett?
I was going to say, so what you're doing this week sounds like the same 4-hour protocol that we used, the standard thing. And I guess tying up that National Historic Landmark for like 5 days to do the full profile probably wouldn't be practical, but I get it. So that's cool. Yeah.
So you're gonna the protocol you're gonna use on the ground. You had to do the 4-hour pre-breathe on the ground. That's why we watched the movies. We said, did you watch a movie while you guys, just to get that out of the way? Did you guys watch a movie? What'd you do to spend that 4 hours?
Talladega Nights.
Talladega Nights. Okay, great. So that's a good one. All right, so you did that. When on orbit, what's your pre-breathe going to be like for that? You said it's going to be you're going to go down to, what are you going to depressurize to? The cabin. How far do you go down? I assume you're at 1 atmosphere, right? Typically, and then you're gonna.
Yep. So we start at 1 atmosphere, and then we over the course of about 5 different stages, we slowly decrease the cabin pressure, and increase the oxygen concentration, and in just like different stages, you know, varying from like 5-hour increments to even like 14 or 15-hour increments, and ultimately ending up around 8.5 psi before like getting in our suits on flight day 3 and doing the final like vent to vacuum EVA and repress.
Is it a long pre-breathe in the suit, or is there any exercise pre-breathe protocol like we had?
No,
like they still have, I guess.
No, the way they constructed this protocol is basically they're kind of doing this cabin environmental configuration and change in the background as we continue to just live our lives and do all of the other flight objectives we're doing. So we'll be going to that high altitude. We'll be doing a lot of that science and research. We'll be knocking out a lot of the objectives that we have for our mission while this pre-breathe is happening in the background and we're in shirt sleeves. And we put on our suits and right before we hit the EVA mark and that final depress to vacuum on flight day 3.
And maybe one note, there is a tiny 100% oxygen pre-breathe that's on the order of 20 minutes prior to the start of our depressurization. So that's the last step of that pre-breathe protocol.
Before getting,
but interestingly,
Yep, in the suit, pressurized.
Okay.
Yeah, interesting. I mean, you know, this whole like multi-day pre-breathe was really to account for Dragon not being able to accommodate a long 100% O2 pre-breathe just due to flammability limits. But actually, as we've progressed over 2 years and a lot of smart people doing analysis on it, the actual bubble formation risk is less over the 2-day pre-breathe that we have than the standard kind of 4.5 hour 100% O2. Yeah, and I guess like for those probably like listening in, like this is all around DCS risk, right?
Right.
You know, they're not like the movies of just, you know, putting on, yeah, that's a great picture from when we were in the 20-foot. That was actually during the EVA. We were at 4.5 or so PSI at that point. Anyway, but the idea that you can't just put your helmet on and jump out from one atmosphere onto the surface of the moon and run around like in movies or something, you'll get probability of DCS. So like SpaceX has been working towards that dream of, you know, in the simplest form of that, when you open the soda can, there's no bubbles. So continuing to lower the pressure to be closer to what you'll actually be at when you're in the suit. So like gradually lowering the exploration atmosphere, gradually increasing the suit pressure. And then if you can mix in some, you know, greater oxygen concentration on the way down, a little less nitrogen, you avoid hypoxia and continue to kind of purge that nitrogen washout. So interestingly enough, like, you know, this kind of proven method that we just did watching Talladega Nights yesterday has higher bubble formation risk than what we'll ultimately be doing in space.
Well, and just so the audience knows, you know, we're getting into somewhat of an academic exercise here, but it's interesting to me anyway, and maybe to others too, because it was interesting that I never would imagine when I first became an astronaut that this would be such a concern. You know, you kind of thought, but it's decompression sickness, the DCS we're talking about, folks. And when you're going from a higher pressure down to a lower pressure, which is what the crew's going to be doing in their spacesuits, you run the risk of a decompression sickness. And so that was huge. There was so much work and effort and tests and studies, and it's changed so much over the years, right, Garrett? I mean, even when we were, it changed so much, even the time we were there, because you're trying to prevent that from happening. And so that's this is actually a really cool project that you're talking about there in itself. I think just how to handle all that when you can depress the cabin like you can.
Yeah. And for our audience, you know, if you're not familiar with decompression sickness, you might have heard it as called the bends, right? So this is something that scuba divers worry about when they go deep under the ocean or deep in the water column. The pressure increases, and when the pressure increases, the nitrogen that you're breathing in higher pressure nitrogen, and that gets into your blood. And then that's fine, but if you come up quickly, it could come out of your blood, like opening up a can of soda, relieving that pressure. The dissolved gas comes out of solution, and it makes these bubbles that can go throughout your body. And bubbles in your bloodstream in general, not good. You know, not something you really want. So that's why we go through all these extremes to get rid of the nitrogen in our blood by doing these pre-breathe protocols that we're talking about, by reducing the total pressure, letting the bubbles come out slowly, or breathing more oxygen and less nitrogen. So that's exactly what this is all designed to do.
And that solution, as you guys pointed out, it sounds like an improvement because you don't have to breathe O2, 100% O2 for a long time, or you don't. It's a gradual, so more natural. What do you call getting rid of the bubble, getting rid of the nitrogen, ridding the body of nitrogen, denitrogization of the body. I guess it seems this is a better way to go than anything I've heard of so far. So
I think we're bearing the lead here because this is all the preamble, but
let's
open the door and they go out in space.
Yeah, let's talk about that.
So why don't we get to that?
Forget about this pre-breathe stuff.
Don't get me wrong. So walk us through that. Tell us about the once you're done with the pre-breathe and now it's time to go outside. How does that work?
Sure. So we'll all get suited up. We've talked about the fact that we don't have an airlock, so the entire capsule has to go to vacuum, which means all 4 of us get suited. We pressurize in the suits. We do that final stage of pre-breathe on 100% oxygen, and then we will depressurize the spacecraft. The depress sequence is probably pretty quick, on the order of 15 minutes or so, and then we'll be at vacuum. We'll have 2 crew members kind of beneath the forward hatch, and one at a time they'll proceed out, open the forward hatch and proceed out above the spacecraft. Do that serially, come back in, and then repressurize the capsule. So overall, based on how much oxygen is available in the spacecraft feeding the suits, we'll be out there. End-to-end the operation will be about 2 hours.
Wow. And so Sarah, you and Jared are going to go out, but everybody's going to be at vacuum. I don't know why it really matters because you're all going to be sitting in space with no air to breathe. So I think it's all pretty much the same. But I know this it's the two of you that are going to climb up and poke your head out and go outside of the confines of the capsule. So how did that decision get made? Was it like, or did you guys like rock, paper, scissors for it? Or Jared, I want to know, did Sarah bribe you with socks? Did that happen?
It's been like a 2 year journey on all of this, and obviously everything is done with SpaceX is a huge part of this program. It's like it's a joint program. We have two of their crew members, so it's just been a process to arrive at this point. But everybody's in everybody's doing this together. It's a huge team effort, and I think we made all the right decisions for who's monitoring the vehicle, who's ready as our medical officer going into it, and then obviously it's all about what we stand to learn from the operation in the suit.
So two of you are going to poke your head out. The other two are not, or if there's extra time.
So we tell them what it looks like.
Yeah.
You're not missing anything. Only
Is that a time constraint, or or is it the umbilical situation, or what limited that?
I think volume of the vehicle is also a factor. I mean, Dragon is super comfy by space capsule standards, but it's obviously still not that big that you want to have four sets of people with four umbilicals and tethers trying to maneuver in and out of that. So I think it made sense, to have two crew members back in, monitor the vehicle, be in a position on the medical side should it be required, and two go out and learn from the suits.
Cool. And as far as what it's going to look like at Mass, you're probably in a better position to coach them than I am, because they're going to be at 700 kilometers, which you were closer to that than I was. I was down at somewhere around, I guess, 300 to 400. So what did the Earth look like to you, and maybe you could give them some tips about what to look for.
All right, so
that's by the way, 700 kilometers. We looked up what was Mike's record from his EVA, and then just added 90 to it.
Is that what it is? So you're 90 miles higher than the Hubble altitude?
Well, kilometers when you were working on Hubble.
So 90 kilometers higher.
Or now.
What country are we in? It's that ISS standard they're using. You don't see, at that higher altitude, you don't see as much detail of because we also, toward the end of our mission, we got into an elliptical orbit where we were coming down, I guess, kind of, I don't know, about 200 miles, 250, and then we went up to the Hubble altitude at 350. That was safer for micrometeorite impacts, so they lowered our perigee to the last few days, and so you kind of saw the difference, and you see more of the curve of the planet. You see less detail, but you see more of the curve, and you can see more of it, which is kind of cool. You can kind of, I don't know what your inclination is going to be, but ours was, I don't know, 20, 27 degrees or so. So we only go much higher than like Miami, but we could see up into the northeast pretty well. And it's pretty cool. I mean, you see the planet, of course, still takes up your field of view, but you still see the curve of it. So I think so you're going to do that not at your apogee then. It's going to be at a lower altitude. You're going to be doing the spacewalks. What was
There's
it?
Not actually.
You got?
There's not actually a constraint on altitude for the space itself. They've been able to arrange it so that it can take place kind of at any point, but they do orient the vehicle to make sure to protect the vehicle from like MMOD.
But well south of the 1400.
Yeah.
Is that because of
That
MMOD?
you don't want to, or wicked radiation.
Ah, there you go. That's another issue too. You got to be careful up there, man. Yeah, we had that same thing. I came back from my flight. I took my Snoopy with me. I have this Snoopy toy I had as a kid, so I took him with me into orbit. And we knew we got more radiation up there, but of course, really, I don't know. I guess we should think about that. But so anyway, when I got back a couple years ago, my Snoopy was at the Intrepid Museum on display, and I turned him in. He had over the years, he's had a rough life. He's about as old as I am, so he had a broken leg, and when I turned him into the Intrepid, they said, well, he's got a broken arm, and he He's also got like broken little tail had broken off.
Oh,
And his spacesuit was kind of like worn, and they didn't understand what it was. So they called me, and they said they would fix him up, but they were wondering if he was exposed to a lot of radiation, right? And I was like, yeah, I guess so. He was up at that Hubble. He never went outside spacewalking, but he was up at that Hubble altitude. So yeah, he got a pretty good shot of radiation. And they're like, well, that's what it is. We were just checking. And I hung up the phone and I said, what about me? Garrett, you said before I went to space. See this hair I got? See this hair, folks? You guys didn't know me before, but I never had even a salt, no salt and pepper, nothing. It went right to white, and it was like 2 weeks after my first flight. You remember that, Garrett?
Mess.
You're not telling
Mess,
me everything,
Mess.
so be careful with that stuff.
Do you really expect me to feel bad for you?
Well, yeah, look at that. That's what
I mean,
happens at the
seriously.
lower orbit. See what happened to Garrett. So
I was up
the
there-
higher orbit's better. Just be
Yeah,
prepared.
yeah. Maybe it's a longer period of time. I don't know. I
Yeah.
thought when you said that Snoopy, I thought when you brought it back, I thought you were going to say it was glowing in the dark.
No, not that bad.
That'd be really spooky. Yeah.
Yeah, but that's pretty cool. Getting that view is going to be awesome. You going to have cameras with you? How are you going to record this stuff? What do you have? Helmet cameras or what are you going to do?
We have helmet cams, and then there's, as you know from SpaceX live streams, they drop like HD cameras all over the vehicle nose
Cool.
cone. I think there won't be any shortage of views.
Awesome. Cool.
It's going to be amazing. Super
Is
fun.
there-
So you don't know, since it's going to be pinned with your launch day, I suppose, but you don't know exactly it's going to be. We said there's going to be a 2-hour total period with the hatch open. How long is that? And is that going to be timed with when you're installation so you can see, or are you going to do anything at night out there?
Master timekeeper.
So it is not pinned. Oh.
Don't give him thumbs up. Oh, we're pros.
Yeah.
So we are not pinned on installation. We are actually we have the spacesuits are prepared to handle both like day and night. The actual time that the hatch is open, gosh, 45 minutes or so, I think, something like that.
So 45 minutes, but not necessarily a full day pass. It could be some days, some nights. So you might see the city lights out there and or sunrise and a sunset.
That'd be cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, to feel the temperature change would be cool too. I mean, I thought that would, because you can feel the warmth of the sun or the cold of the dark before you see it. And then you go into it, you come around the corner and you look and you see the sun out there in a black sky, and you see the Terminator,
Mhm.
and you can see that through the window too, I guess. But I don't know. It seemed to me to be pretty cool to be able to just, without the window around it, be able to take a look at all that stuff going on. So
Yeah,
that'd be cool. I
if
think
you get a sunrise or a sunset, don't
that'd
miss
be
it.
good.
It's,
Yeah.
that's really special.
I mean, it's cool through the window, but it's if you can get it
Yeah.
during the spacewalk, and you feel the changes too. It's like looking at an aquarium versus being a scuba diver. You're interacting with that environment, and it's pretty cool.
One of my best memories from being up there is on my last spacewalk. We had some downtime, and so I was able to like pause for a moment, and as the sun was about to rise, and I held on. I was out on the truss, and I'm holding on to the space station with the handrail behind me, but nothing is in my field of view other than the limb of the Earth, and then the sun coming up. And so the only thing between me and the Earth and the sun was just the glass of my helmet, and that view of the sun coming up without anything else in your field of view is. So I can still see it right now. So don't miss it. Don't blink. It's amazing. It's really cool.
Yeah. Is it mainly a suit checkout that you guys are going to be? Is there any tasks you're going to be doing while you're out? It doesn't sound like you have a lot of time to do that other than checking out the suit, testing that out. Is there anything you're hoping, anything else you're hoping to accomplish while you're doing this? Because this is pretty big. If this spacesuit checks out, this is really a game changer, I would think. But is there anything in particular you're looking to test or do, or mobility wise or anything like that?
Yeah, I mean, this is kind of the whole Polaris program is just meant to be test and developmental. So just get the information that we need so they can roll it into the next block upgrade of the suit for maybe a suit that actually is doing, 8-hour EVAs on, a station or celestial body at some point in time. So we have a whole suit test matrix that each of us are going through that tests different elements of the suit out and like what an operation could look like in that. So hands-free operations, single-handed operations with various disturbances. And then really just the operation itself for SpaceX. I mean, that's, people, first private EVA or civilian, what would matter, it's like its first commercial EVA. I mean, if you think about the future applications when there's thousands of people in low Earth orbit or tens of thousands of people are going to be doing, they're going to be doing things. And right now, the knowledge of how to even conduct the operation safely live, really 2 space agencies or 3. So I think the idea that SpaceX gets familiar with the whole operations of intentionally bending down a vehicle, to vacuum and, the medical implication size of this, right? There are all their flight surgeons getting spun up on DCS risks, other risks associated with it. All the contingencies that can happen. So this is like, it's kind of forced SpaceX to go through this learning process. And then a lot of the operational learning will happen on the mission itself. So I'd say the operations and the suit are the big goals.
As far as the physical tasks, I guess the hatch ops are probably the most challenging, right? Or is there something else that I'm missing?
I mean, that was what was with us in the vacuum chamber yesterday. Basically, Sarah and I are positioned right next to an actual, hatch that would, normally be installed on Dragon with its seals. And, going through the hatch rotation and opening mechanisms, that's what we're using essentially to induce a lot of the met rates for, at least, for the two of us on that.
Hey, Mike Garrett, I've got a question from viewers, if you don't mind, real
Oh,
quick.
yeah,
Yeah,
let's
sure.
do that.
Is that cool? Hey, so the suits, you're all going to need suits because the entire capsule is depressurized. Are all 4 suits the same, or are there differences between the 2 suits going outside versus the suits that are going to be internally? Like, have they given 2 of you shorter tethers or something?
So overall, the suits are largely the same. They all need to function and support us in vacuum. There's a couple small differences for the suits on the inside because 2 of them will be inside the spacecraft. The thermal environment is a little bit different. So there's a few different layers of thermal insulation on some of the suits. And I think only the EV suits will have a camera looking out. So viewers will be able to see that perspective outside.
Which makes sense.
Nice,
Cool.
thank you.
Yeah.
That's great. Hey, I think maybe we should wrap up this first episode here. We were going to do a 2-parter. So to our viewers out there or listeners on the podcast, come back for part 2. We're going to talk more about the suits. There's a lot of detail that we haven't talked about with how the suits construction and design and the training. How did they get ready to do all this? And
Yeah, I want to hear about that too.
yeah, and
Right.
I'm sure we'll come up with some other things to talk about as well.
Yeah.
So how about we sign off for now? Is that cool, Mass?
Yeah, I think we got you're in charge of the clock. We ready to go?
I
think
mean,
we're-
you could stall for 1 minute and 30 seconds if you wanted to give.
You have
everybody
another quick
money there.
question from the crowd? What do you want?
I don't have one prepped.
I think
no.
Garrett needs a bathroom break. He's like, no, let's go. Garrett needs to go.
I think the crew needs a couch break. Actually, they're
Yeah.
practicing their close
Yeah.
environment training there.
Garrett, aren't you wearing your diaper today?
Oh, come on. Don't go.
Oh, that's
Mass,
right.
don't
You're a
go
young
there.
guy still.
Come
You're
on,
you're a
man.
lot younger than I am.
All right. Well, thanks everybody for joining us, and stay tuned for part 2. What else were we supposed to say, Mass?
I just hope the crew decides to hang out for another episode of this.
Oh yeah,
They got a lot of important things to do, and I
Are
hope
you
they
guys
can
up
hang
for
out
it?
a little bit longer.
Yeah,
You
totally.
bet.
All right,
or
cool. Thanks.
you can. Excellent. Okay, good news. All right, so we'll see you back in just a little bit. Thanks, everybody.